Good evening. I want to talk to y'all this evening on one of the most dangerous and defining events in the timeline of structural firefighting, flashover. So, understanding flashover is a critical not only for safe firefighting tactics, but also for fire investigation because it's a key transition point in the fire growth. Flashover is defined as the near simultaneous ignition of most of the combustible materials in an enclosed space. It typically marks the transition between the growth stage of the fire and the fully developed stage. Because flashover isn't a random occurrence, it follows a predictable pattern based on heat buildup, fuel availability, and ventilation. When a fire starts in a room, it produces hot gases and smoke that rises from a thermal layer near the ceiling. Over time, the layer becomes hotter and thicker. Heat becomes a radiant downward and outward, increasing the temperature of all of the exposed surfaces. So, modern homes and buildings are full of synthetic materials, plastics, foams, resins, which they burn at a much higher temp than traditional materials like cotton, wood. This means that the fire growth is faster and it reaches flashover conditions sooner. In fact, in many of the modern structures, flashover can occur within 3 to 5 minutes after ignition. So, there's several warning signs that we can look for as indicators of impending flashover. One being high heat at low levels. So, if you're crawling and you're still feeling intense heat, the upper layers and they're radiating significant thermal energy. Two, you got dark, turbulent smoke. So, this isn't light gray smoke, it's thick, black, rolling smoke. It's got a strong movement across the ceiling. So, rollover. You may see flames or fireballs appearing in the smoke. So, they're unburned gases igniting. This is a major red flag. And then you've got ventilation limited conditions. So, when there's more fuel than oxygen conditions becoming unstable and explosive once air is introduced. So, now let's look briefly at the science behavior behind flashover. It all comes down to heat transfer and ignition temperatures. So, most common combustibles ignite around 600 degrees Fahrenheit. So, when the radiant heat in the room reaches above 20 kilowatts per meter square, enough to ignite surfaces without indirect flame contact, flashover occurs. This isn't just a spike in flames, it's a thermal event that turns a survivable environment into a deadly one in just seconds. So, for firefighters, recognize the warning signs of flashover. It's a matter of life and death. That's why training on smoke reading, ventilation control, and thermal imaging cameras, the use is essential. So, opening a door or window at the wrong time can induce the oxygen and a smoldering fire needs to erupt into a flashover. So, as investigators, we also need to understand flashover to interpret burn patterns and fire spread. After flashover, it becomes more difficult to determine the exact origin of a fire because everything becomes involved. The damage becomes more uniform. So it is important to differentiate between pre-flashover and post-flashover indications during scene analysis. To wrap it up, flashover represents the most critical moment in a room's fire development. Whether you're on the nozzle, sizing up the scene, or analyzing a burned structure. After the fact, being able to anticipate, to recognize flashover is essential for safety and accurate fire behavior interpretation. Thank you.